What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year to everybody out there. This is going to be my first video for 2025, and what better way to start off the new year than with a ranking video. In today's ranking video, I am going to be taking a look at the Step Up franchise, a franchise that has some amazing dance sequences but feels like an after-school special throughout all 5 movies at the same time. And like I said, I will be covering the 5 movies that ran from 2006 to 2014. This will not include the TV show that came out some years after, and it will also not include the movie Step Up China, which I believe is a Step Up movie, but I don't think has anything to do with these movies in particular. So yeah, my background with this franchise is kind of all over the place. I saw parts 3 and 4 in theaters. The other ones I caught when they came out on DVD and Blu-ray. I was never a huge fan of them, honestly, when I first saw them, but the more I watched them over the years, the more I grew to appreciate some of the later entries in this series. Because once this series realizes what it is, it wears itself on its sleeve, and it knows it's dumb, it knows it's stupid, but it has such a good time. So even the lesser entries in the series I still have fun with because they're overly dumb. These are Save the Rec Center type movies. They know what they are. They know they hired a bunch of dancers to be actors when really they can't act. So the dancing is amazing, but the acting is pretty non-existent throughout this entire series. But like I said, it's a lot of fun, and hey, it's a guilty pleasure for me. So let's get into the ranking. At number 5, I have the 4th entry in the series, Step Up Revolution. This one, they go down to Miami, and this is the one where they start overly producing these dance sequences to the point where it almost feels impossible in certain circumstances. The dance sequences here are absolutely amazing, but they just feel to the point where they almost can't be done. And that's, it's a passable thing in these movies. They are, dumb movies and whatnot. You also have 2 pretty lackluster leads in Ryan Guzman and Catherine McCormick. I don't really think they have a whole lot of chemistry together. This movie also throws away pretty much all the characters that were introduced in the last 2 movies. Some of them do come back in cameos, which is nice, but it would have been better to get them throughout this entire movie. One character does actually come back, and he's part of the main group, and he's played by the late great Stephen Twitch Boss. Rest in peace, sir. So you do get him, but everyone else is, like I said, basically just coming in at the end to do a really cool dance, and then they're done with the movie from that point. So getting introduced to a lot of new characters all at once doesn't really help this case for the movie. But, there's some fun to be had here and there with some of the dance sequences, but outside of that, there's really not much to enjoy in this one. Now, moving on to my number 4 pick, it is Step Up to the Streets, which might be a little bit controversial because I know most fans of this franchise actually put this movie a lot higher. For me, this one just doesn't work quite as well as the next 3 that I'm going to put higher than it. Mostly because, again, you have 2 very lackluster leads in Robert Hoffman and Brianna Evigan. I don't really think their chemistry is all that great. This one does improve the dance sequences, though, from the first movie in the franchise, so there is something there. And this movie does introduce the greatest character in this entire franchise, Mr. Robert Alexander III, aka Moose. Man, this guy is amazing. He is without question the best dancer in this entire franchise, and this movie definitely gets some extra points for him being in it. It does have some pretty amazing dance sequences, especially the whole rain dance at the end. It's really awesome. But everything else in between, just with the main girl struggling between her old crew, and now she goes to this new school and she has a new crew and all this kind of stuff, and it's a big back and forth, and it's a lot of who really cares at the end of the day. But there's some enjoyable things here and there from this movie, but not quite as enjoyable as what I like in the next 3 movies. So moving on to number 3, I have the OG Step Up from 2006. The best thing I can say about this movie is it introduced most of the world to Channing Tatum. He had done a few things before this, but this definitely kick-started his career. It also kick-started Jenna Dewan's career, who didn't really go on to do a whole lot when it came to acting, but her and Tatum met on this particular movie. They got married. Unfortunately, now they are divorced. But she's had a pretty decent career after the fact. And they actually have probably the best chemistry, I would say, out of all the leads in this particular franchise. And they work well together despite this movie being very melodramatic. It's got a lot of stuff here that just feels very, very after-school special-like. Some of it almost feels like it's a soap opera at times. And, you know, the dance sequences here are cool, but I do think the dance sequences are lacking something when it compares to the rest of the movies in this franchise. But there's enough here to kind of hold it together for the most part. And I think, like I said, the chemistry between the main two actors is really what keeps this one higher in my rankings than the other two. So there's some fun to be had, but it's not the greatest movie in the world, but it fits perfectly right here in the middle of the franchise, I would say. Now, moving on to my number 2 pick, I have the last movie in the franchise, Step Up All In. My favorite thing about this one is the Avengers / Fast Five approach that this movie takes, where it goes and picks up characters from all the previous 4 movies and brings them together to be one big group, while simultaneously throwing in some new characters as well. So I do like that aspect of it, is you get to see a lot of characters that you are familiar with, but you get introduced to some new people too. It's pretty cool. Just like part 4, this one does feel a little overly produced when it comes to a lot of the dance sequence and stuff. Some of it feels just a little too polished and a little too glossy and whatnot, but there's a lot of fun to be had here. I think the dance sequences here are a lot of fun. I do like them, you know, like I said, bringing back a lot of the characters. Glad to see Moose back once again, although I feel like he and his girlfriend, played by Allison Stoner, should have been the lead characters in this particular movie instead of Ryan Guzman and Brianna Evigan. However, I do think Brianna Evigan and Ryan Guzman have better chemistry together in this movie than they had with their counterparts in the other 2 movies they were in. So there is that going for it. But yeah, overall, it's a lot of fun, and there's not really much else I can say about this particular entry. And my number 1 pick is clearly Step Up 3 or Step Up 3D. This one to me has just always been my favorite. It's the first movie in the series that I think really gets what this series needs to be. It realizes it's a lot of dancers trying to act. It knows it goes over the top with dance sequences, and they just need to play into that. It needs to be ridiculous. It needs to be outrageous. So they crank it up with the dance sequences. They crank it up by making this 3D. This one, just like part 5, I feel like Moose and Allison Stoner should have been the leads instead of the 2 leads that we get here, who are Rick Malambry and Sharni Vincent, who, again, pretty lackluster when it comes to being the lead roles in this movie. But there's enough fun had here. The dance sequences are some of my absolute favorite in the series. The final battle is amazing between the 2 groups. So for me, this one just works more than the rest of the series, and it's probably the biggest, guiltiest pleasure in this franchise for myself. So yeah, that's about it for me, guys. If you have seen the movies in the Step Up franchise, please let me know what you think about them. Let me know what your rankings are. I'll leave all my links down below on where you can follow me and check out more of my reviews. And until next time, I will catch you guys later.